I am live, I think. I am live now. Hi, Classroom Crusaders. It's been a little while since I've been able to see you guys, so I'm very excited. I'm a few minutes late. I'm so sorry. This is the joys. I'm sure you have all seen this of working from home. Is our doorbell rang just as I was about to go live, and I'm like, oh my gosh. And so, yeah, those are the moments, right? So I'm very excited to come to you today. We're going to talk about parents. Now, I know that parent-teacher relationship is an important one anyway. But these days, with what we've got going on, it is even more important. Don't mind my hair, you guys. If you guys saw me in the webinar, I had my hair all down and done. Those days are gone now. I am just throwing it up as much as I can. Anyway, so let's talk parenting and supporting them so that they can support you. Now, I am a parent. I have two teenage girls. So I will say in some regards, I think I have it a little bit easier than some of my friends who have little kids and some of my colleagues because they're kind of self guiding in a lot of ways. But I will also tell you, as a parent and an educator, there are things that I'm noticing that I wish would be a little bit different. I think it's an opportunity, and I think that there is a lot of things that we need to be thinking about that we might not be. Now, I'm not saying you're not thinking about these things, but let's get really specific and explicit. Now, here's the thing when it comes to this. Everybody's story right now is different. Whether you're in an urban school, a rural school, whether you're in a high socioeconomic school or a lower socioeconomic school, everybody's going to have a different perspective and a different way of dealing with this. So let's go big picture first, and then I'm going to give you some strategies to connect with. So big picture, we're all in this, right? Kids are learning from home. The degree of what they have access to varies dramatically. Not even from district to district, which we know is huge because you could be, 5 miles away from somebody and be in a very wealthy district and then being in a very poor district just down the road. But it also varies within a classroom. And so you very well or very likely are having some students that are connecting and working with you and then others that seem to not show up at all. And so that is going to obviously be tricky, and I know that it's frustrating. But what we really have to do is figure out ways to connect with parents more now than we ever did before. Okay, so I have some notes down. Of course, my iPad, which I took notes on, is at 5%. So let's hope that it stays up. So if you already have a relationship with your parents, I want you to continue to leverage that. If you have strong relationships, then continue to connect with them and to build on that. If you don't have a strong relationship with your kids' parents or with some of your kids' parents, this is an opportunity to grow it and to enhance it and really to nurture it. If these parents don't know you, like you, and trust you, they are going to support their child less in your class. Let's go back one step, and then I'll dig into the little bit more. I've said this before, and I'm just going to say it again really quickly. We are now 4 to 5 weeks into all of this stuff, right? You may not be that long in online learning, but in terms of like the world getting, turned upside down. The scope, the scale of this is unprecedented. We use that word all the time, but also the speed. So all of us had our lives upended in every aspect of it, from grocery shopping to daily life to professional life to everything in 24 to 48 hours. And we have to recognize that that happened to your parents as well. And now, about 4 weeks in, we're starting to really establish the fact that, okay, there has to be some new normals. We have to start developing systems and routines. For a while, it was really just about grief, shock, stress, chaos, a lot of it. Now, I'm not saying that that's not there still, but I am saying that now we're at a point where you, me, and all parents and all teachers just are going to have to start to try to find small pieces of routine. And so doing this now is a really important time. I will tell you that I don't have I bet you can imagine that I can be a little intimidating to some of my kids' parents. Some of my kids' teachers. Some of the teachers love what I have to share and the relationship we have, and others are just like, stay away, woman. The ones that I don't have the best relationship with, and there are, I would say there's one for each of my kids. It's been an opportunity to build that relationship up. So, one of my daughter's teachers has been emailing me regularly around the disconnect that might be happening between her and my daughter. And I have had so much more respect for her because of that communication. So, we have been emailing back and forth and actually like asking each other about our personal lives, how we're doing, things like that. That has gone a really, really long way with me. And I am so much more inclined to really push my daughter to really support her in that class because I'm seeing the teacher a little differently now. Okay, so that relationship is really important. The parents that you're with are going through a lot. And the teachers that they trust, the teachers that they understand what they're doing, the teachers with whom they have a connection, they're going to more naturally connect and want to support their students in those classes. So I'm talking about a lot of that middle school, high school stuff. But in elementary school, if you're self-contained, that relationship is going to be pivotal because they're really dictating how much their student and child is doing. There's also this level of trust that has to happen between you and parents that never had to happen before because you are literally walking into their homes when you're doing online learning and either unveiling issues that have been hidden before where parents are now vulnerable, or you are kind of there's a level of um, angst that can happen around them needing to be in control of their students' learning that they haven't had to have before that you're seeing for the first time. Okay, so let's think about how you build relationships with people in your life because that's the same way that you build relationships with your parents. And so when you build relationships with people in your personal life, it's reciprocal, right? You're not just telling like a new person that you're dating or a friend or anybody new in your life that you're building a relationship with. Let's say you go out to dinner with them. You're not just only talking about you and what you want from them, right? You're not just telling them about your expectations and that's it. You build a reciprocal relationship. You're vulnerable with them, they're vulnerable with you. You share, you talk, and it's not just one-sided. That's got to be the way that you're thinking about your relationships with your parents, okay? So there's two categories here that I really think to think about. One is extending trust, and the other is communication. So when we extend trust to our parents, we are saying to them, I don't know all the answers right now, and you're going to give them grace. You're going to trust that they're doing what they can and that they love and want what's best for their child. And that communication of trust is going to go a long way. What it looks like in one house is not necessarily what it's going to look like in another house. And that needs to be a mindset of yours that you're okay with. Those of you that are really type A and organized and want things done a certain way, you're going to have to let that go a little. And that trust that you extend is going to be really important. How can you build that trust? You can give them grace, right? When assignments aren't coming through, or if they're not connecting, if they're not showing up, when you connect with them, when you communicate with them, give them grace. It's okay that you weren't there. No problem. Let me see how I can support you. Ask, how do you want support? Right? Check in with them often. I'm going to give you some more strategies at the end of this that a few principals have shared with me on what they're doing with their staff to build that parent relationship. But the first thing I want you to think about is extending trust. The second thing I want you to think about is communication. Remember, we're talking about how you build a relationship with people in your personal life. It's the same kind of way. Trust is the first part and communication is the second. Trust occurs with positive interactions consistently over time. If you're not interacting with your parents consistently, positively, over the course of this whole thing, you're not going to build trust with them. Okay? So that empathy is going to be really important. It's about understanding that you want to know what they're going through and understanding how hard that must be. Okay? Humility. When you are communicating humility, that you don't know all the answers either, that's going to go a long way with parents, because if you're dictating what has to be done with this level of authority and they don't do it well enough, or they're not doing it, there's going to be a defensiveness there. So I think you guys got to come at it with this level of, I don't know what I'm doing either, and let's figure this out together. And I'm going to give you some strategies on how to be able to communicate that. I would suggest community building. So remember I said a relationship is reciprocal. A lot of you are using Seesaw and Google Classrooms and things like that, but it's one-sided. So I would actually really encourage you to be thinking about ways that you can build a community with your parents. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as well. So some ways that you can be building community. We're going to start with that. Now, we've been hearing about teacher tours, and I love it. I get all teary-eyed when I see tours of teachers driving into classrooms and things like that. So I want you to be thinking creatively like that. If you can do a drive-by in a student's house and text the parent and say, hey, I'm going to drive by just to wave hi. It's not to all of your students, but there might be certain ones, right? There might be parents that you just say, hey, I'd love to see you. I'm going to come by your house and we can just talk from a safe distance. That will go a very long way. I can't tell you what that would do for me as a parent if a teacher reached out and did something like that for me. So visiting houses, I think, would be really powerful. Listening sessions. You can call a parent and just say, hey, let's talk. How are things going? I'd love to hear from you about what you need, about how I can support you, about how it's going for your child. And just do more listening than talking. That's what I mean by reciprocal relationship. Think about a Facebook group for your parents only. So just like this Facebook group can be reciprocal, where you can communicate with us and we can communicate with you. And think about the lives that I'm doing. You can use this as a platform to be able to share with parents what's on your heart, what you're planning for the week. Let parents talk to each other about how they're supporting. It could be a really amazing way to build a community. When I think about engaged groups, it's got to be both ways. And so a Facebook group could be a really amazing way to do that. If you set up a Facebook group to be a social learning group, like we have in Classroom Crusaders, you can go to Units and store posts in Units, store videos in Units, so parents could access them really easily and then be able to go back. And so you might be able to do like a Monday parent meeting, right? And say, hey guys, this is what we're thinking about this week. Let me know what might be difficult for you. Let me know if you need any support with this. And then save it in a unit for that week. And then parents can go back and listen to that. So trust and communication. So I've kind of tagged a bunch of educators that are out there and I said, what are you doing? So these are some other ideas that people are doing to build relationships with parents. Initial wellness calls. And that's where I was talking about doing some listening. Initial wellness calls, they had prepared survey questions for parents about what their level of capability was in terms of support and internet and devices and all of that. But the goal was to say, what do you need from me? And they're doing those wellness calls right now their plan is every 2 weeks to keep checking in with them. So I love that idea. Another school that I talked to, they gave cell phone numbers out to their parents. This is in an urban district, and some of them did their regular cell phone numbers and others did Google phones, so you can text back and forth with a Google number for free. She said some parents are actually reaching out daily. And, you can set some parameters about when you respond and don't feel like you have to, answer everybody right away, but to be able to text is really powerful, to feel like you have that connection, especially for parents that really want to do the right thing and support their students. You can be having office hours on Zoom. So even if you give out your number, you could say, hey, that's a great question to do on office hours. Let's go do that. And then set some office hours where parents can just join into your Zoom and they can do some Q&A. You can even attach your Zoom to your Facebook group so any Zooms that you're in aren't a one-sided Zoom like ours is right now, but you can do a Zoom call and then have it go live on Facebook too if you wanted to. If you need question about that, do Zoom parent-teacher conferences and thinking about differently how this is going to look different because it's not going to be the same kind of parent-teacher conference. Remember, extend trust, communication. Those are the two big things. I'm not as worried about grades, you guys. We're just worried about being able to survive, being able to feel confident and safe and supported. Okay? Um, Parent surveys about remote learning. Get from them what they want. If they are heard, I promise you they're not going to be off spewing or talking bad or feeling really frustrated. They want to feel like they have a voice. So parent surveys about how remote learning is going and get their opinions, get their advice. Because remember, you can show humility by saying, we don't have all the answers. This is the first time anybody's ever done anything like this. There's another school that's offering online mini classes for parents, mini classes on phonics for parents that want to support their children really learning. Then there's some mini classes for parents just on managing your time. How do you think about a schedule? Think about your counselors and how they can be used in a way that's really creative to maybe give support to parents in addition to students, but to give parents some opportunities to think through how they're managing this new normal and their new routines. You may want to be thinking about, especially for those parents that are really overwhelmed, maybe you're differentiating and providing review content instead of new learning for students. That might be really powerful and important. And also, you can be recording your video. You could be doing some mini recordings for parents on how they can support a student for your certain lessons. So just think about Zoom in a way where, remember, you don't have to have a classroom to be able to record classes and learning. So you can be recording lessons for your students and send it to your parents. I will tell you that I have one teacher of my daughter's who CCs me on every email that he sends to her, so to the class. So I am aware of what's going on because they have their own portal. So I don't know what's actually happening in most of my kids' classes. And I have to go and dig in. And if information is hard for me to find, I'm not going to go do it. I've got a million other things going on and they're 13 and 15 years old and I'm just trusting that they're doing it. So if you can communicate with parents over email or whatever it is, then do it. But here's the key. Ask them, how do you want to be communicated with? And it doesn't mean you have to communicate differently to every parent, but you can say, after talking to a majority of parents, most of you want email, for example. I am also going to offer a Facebook group for those of you that want to do it, whatever it is. But trust and communication, those are the two big pieces that you need to be working to establish. So I'd love to hear more of your ideas. Love to know what you're doing, because what you're doing is key. And so when you are sharing with the rest of the group, remember, it's your lemonade recipes that we're sharing with everyone else, and then we make better and better lemonade so we can learn from each other. That is all I have to say for today. I hope that this was helpful and at least got your brain thinking and exploring creative and new possibilities. Ask questions and share what you're doing. Thanks.